It was a return to the familiar landscape around the town of Glen Harvey in Gauteng as the 2018 SACCS reached its climax. Yes, that was it, the final round of the year. And with plenty of championships undecided before the event, this one was always going to be a crackerjack. All the action is brought to you by Toyota, Ford and Total Exilium. The final round of the 2018 season was originally scheduled to take place near Sun City, but in the end, the familiar koppies and tracks around the Gauteng mining town of Glen Harvey played host. And what a host it was. The Kloof Recreation Club again served as race HQ and DSP, a familiar setting for most of the teams. But this year's route wasn't a simple carbon copy from previous years, as several new sections had been included, and the sections that were reused had seen a lot of rain since the final round of 2017, causing deep ruts and exposing even more of the treacherous rocks that often play a role in the outcome of this event. And the outcome was all that mattered, as the crews taking part in the 2018 Gold 400 on November the 2nd and 3rd prepared for battle. And there was plenty at stake in Gauteng that weekend. Only the Class S Championship had been settled with one round to spare, as David Huddy and Gerrit Skitter donned the laurel wreaths as champions in Harrismith last month. But for everyone else, well, let's just say nobody was going to be taking it easy in Glen Harvey. In the special vehicle category, Big John Telford found himself at the top of the log after 5 rounds, but his lead over Coetzee Labuschagne was just 2 points. Anything but comfortable. The leading pair were well clear of the pack though, with Stefan van Pletsen in 3rd on 69 points. Nick Gosler was in 4th and also well clear of any Class P challenges, whilst Werner Kennedy rounded out the top 5. Over on the production side of the show, the battle for championship glory still raged fiercely in Class T. The age-old battle between Ford and Toyota was strong as ever, but if anything, the momentum had swung the way of the lads in blue. Lance Woolridge was just 9 points clear of Johan Horn, however, and neither of the two drivers would be giving any quarter in Glen Harvey. To make things even more interesting, Gareth Woolridge was also still in with a shout, as was Gary Berthold, although it would take quite a bit for the latter two crews to muscle in on the championship action. The top 5 was completed by Jacques Van Tonder, who clearly found some new pace late in the season. Ahead of the Class T crews are the big boys of the SACCS, the Class FIA heavyweights, where Toyota Gazoo Racing SA generally rules the roost. But even within its own camp, the battle for supremacy was raging. Youngster Henk Laudachan had taken over the lead of the Class FIA battle and was 8 points ahead of teammate and defending champion, Janelle de Villiers. Chris Visser was in 3rd, still in with an outside chance of championship glory, whilst Terence Marsh and Jason Fenter completed the top 5. Clearly there was a lot to play for at the Gold 400, and with a rough route over varied terrain, this was anybody's game. Even so, most of the drivers knew exactly what they had to do in order to achieve the top step of the podium come Saturday afternoon. With his teammate now in the lead of Class FIA and the overall production championship under threat, Janelle de Villiers had only one option in Glen Harvey.
Yeah, well, for us it's simple. We've got to win the race. If you win the race, then everything else takes care of itself. We had we had 2 bad races, the last 2 DNFs. So it put us in a tricky situation, but anyway, if we win the race, we can still do it. So that's what we'll try and do, and hope for the best.
But Laudachan certainly wasn't planning to let de Villiers drive away with the spoils, even if the youngster was overjoyed at finding himself in a position to challenge for the title.
The beginning of the year was a bit shaky, so if you asked me halfway through the year, I would have said, no, we're just driving. But here we are at the last race, and it's quite close to the championship. So I think once again we can't really affect anyone else's race, so we'll just go and race our own race and see what happens at the end.
While the Class FIA battle was pretty much a closed affair between the two Toyota Gazoo Racing SA crews, the man in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux, Chris Visser, was also in with a shout, even if it was a fairly quiet one.
Yeah, it was a small, slim chance. But yeah, we're going to go flat out for it this weekend. We're going to race a car to win the championship.
Class FIA also saw 4 entries from the Redline Motorsport Nissan Navara squad, as Terence Marsh explains.
Yeah, it's a nice way to wrap up the year. So we've got four cars out here. 3 of them in our traditional VK50s, and then a brand new. So pretty much what is our 2020 car, which we now start our whole development phase. So it's exciting for us. It's exciting. We're looking forward to it. Yeah, Letshego she's been really good. We've done quite a bit of preparation. Obviously, I think we know her background, and she's had some motorsport, and it's helped a lot. But she's a professional. I mean, she's really been dedicated. She's been disciplined. She's an adventurer. So we really have gelled well, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, if my partner's giving the thumbs up, then.
More on Lesego Zulu and her race a little bit later on. But one of the key new additions to the Nissan arsenal was the arrival of the all-new independent rear suspension racer to be campaigned on the Dakar Rally by former cross-country champion Shamiya Variawa. Here's the man himself with some more details on the new car.
Well, it's a totally new car. The old cars were solid axle. This is the independent rear suspension, and geometry, the frame, it's all totally different. Full composite bodywork. I don't think you can get better than this.
Variawa might be an old hand when it comes to cross-country racing, but the Gold 400 also debuted a few new crews. That of Ernest Roberts and Stewie Creedy. Hardly rookies though, after coming off a full season racing in side-by-sides. The jump up to Class FIA in the Nissan was going to be a big one.
I started about 4 or 5 months ago, got on the side-by-side, did 2 races, fell in love with the sport. So spoke to Terence Marsh, he did me a proper deal.
But while Roberts would be finding his feet in Class FIA, some of the more experienced crews would be slugging it out in Class T, where the red versus blue battle was about to come to a head. Leading the standings, with just the final round to go, was Ford NWM's Lance Woolridge.
So I think we just got to go out there and have a clean run, keep our head, focus. And yeah, I've told myself what's going to happen is going to happen. I can do my best, and yeah, with the rest of the championships in the balance, so we'll see.
Despite planning to concentrate on his own race, the championship leader would certainly be keeping a close eye on the Horn brothers, who were breathing down his neck in their Malalon Toyota Hilux.
We're 9 points gap. He's 9 points ahead of us, so yeah, I think the plan is just to win. That's whatever happens, it's going to happen.
At the same time, the second Ford pairing of Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer were also still in with a shout, coming off some strong results late on in the season, as was this man, Gary Berthold, in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux.
I can tell you one thing, many years of experience, a lot of grey hair, and you understand one thing, it's not over till it's all over. We're on the board, we've got a chance to win this championship, and that's what we're here to do.
On the special vehicles side of the championship, it was really a 2-horse race between Kutsia Labuskakny and John Talford. The two drivers had been at each other's throats throughout the season in a ding-dong battle, but it was all coming down to Glenn Harvey. The big man in the Bat Warbird knew exactly what to do.
Funnily enough, we were in the same position last year in a different class. It's coming down to the wire again, and you know what, may the best man win. We've both worked hard, and whoever takes it, takes it.
But then so did this lady, sitting next to her father in the 4x4 Mega World Porter.
Yeah, we're really excited about it though. It's been coming a long time for my dad, so I think he really deserves it. But from our side, we're just happy to be here. It's another opportunity for us to go out and have some fun together as a family.
And speaking of ladies, let's take a moment to talk about another one. A name synonymous with South African motor racing is that of Gugu Zulu, known to his friends as Googs. The affable gentleman had shown his prowess over many years in many formulas, and his death on Kilimanjaro in 2016 sent shockwaves through the tight-knit South African motorsport fraternity. His wife Lesego has also been known for her stamina and fitness, but never for her skill in a race car. That all changed, however, at the Gold 400, as she strapped into the Class FIA Redline Motorsport Nissan Navara next to Terence Marsh for what promised to be a weekend of ultimate thrills.
You know what, interestingly enough, I have never been in a rally car. My dear late husband never did drive me in a rally car, and neither did he drive me around the circuit either. I was always driven by other people. You know what, I've been in this car with Terence for a practice ride, and it's one heck of a roller coaster that I'm looking forward to.
So with everything said, it was time now to get everything done. And the first order of business was the qualifying race for the Gold 400, which took place on the afternoon of Friday the 2nd of November. The qualifying route comprised just shy of 50 kilometers of varied terrain, including sandy tracks, rocks, and much, much more. This race has long had a reputation as a tough test, and there was no reason to doubt that the 2018 edition would bring more of the same. The special vehicle field was bolstered at the Gold 400 by Clint Gibson and Clint Brook, who brought their striker out to play. Big Loz Trethewey also was back in action and had Adrian Roots doing duty in the hot seat. But all eyes were on the 4x4 Mega World crew of Coetzee Labuschagne and daughter Sandra Labuschagne-Jonk, who were locked in a championship battle with John Telford and Victor Nsheki. As it turned out, neither of these crews made much of an impression during qualifying due to issues with dust in one car and suspension setup on the other. In the end, both championship hopefuls were beaten by Stefan van Pletsen and Jaco Pieterse in the Live Lesotho Chenoweth. They in turn had to watch as John Thompson and Marisa Matten hipped them to the post. This left the qualifying podium up for grabs, and taking third place was Clint Gibson and Clint Brook beside him. The pair posted a time just 1 minute 20 off the time set by Big Lance Trethewey and Adrian Roots in their LTE back Venom. But if Trethewey didn't take the win, then who did? PJ O'Rourke once said that age and guile beats youth, innocence, and a bad haircut. But not this time. This time, it was youth that won over age and guile, as the Masaji brothers showed their class in the qualifying race for special vehicles. Their time was 15 seconds quicker than Trethewey, giving them a maiden pole position.
The time trial was very rough. It was technical, but I just tried to keep it on the road and take it easy, you know, and it seemed like it worked.
Class P was an all McInerney affair this time around, with Andrew McInerney taking the class victory ahead of brother Keith by 13 seconds no less. Over in the production camp, the three Class S crews entered for the race had a tight battle for qualifying honours. In the end, it was Jannie Visser with son Chris next to him, who went just 15 seconds quicker than newly crowned champions David Huddy and Gerrit Skitter in their Nissan Navara. Archie Rutherford and Atlas Copco executive Peter van Wyk posted the third quickest time, some 40 seconds adrift of Huddy's. But the Class S Championship was done and dusted, so most spectators had their eyes on the lads in Class T, where Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable got their race off in exactly the way they had hoped not to. The pair posted only the 5th fastest time, 3 seconds slower than Ford NWM teammates Marcus Baumgart and Cleber Cincia, also in a Ranger. As a matter of fact, both factory Fords were beaten by privateer Jacques Van Tonder and navigator Sammy Redlinghuis, who went 16 seconds quicker than the Brazilians, taking third spot in the process. Ahead of the flying Van Tonder came Gary Berthold and Jeff Minott in their Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux, just 20 seconds off the pace set by, well, yes indeed, the pace was set by Johan and Werner Horn in the Malalan Toyota Hilux. Trouble for Lance Woolridge, but great news if you stood in the red corner.
Actually surprised, we wrong started a couple of times. But yeah, the car feels good. And yeah, it's rough out there. We have to be cautious not to break the car.
This left only the heavy hitters in Class FIA, which is becoming more crowded with each passing race. In Glen Harvey, it was Variawa and Piranha who went 5th fastest, despite struggling with the setup on their brand new box fresh Redline Motorsport Nissan Navara. Ahead of them came the Alfa Renault Duster of Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson, who just couldn't match the pace set by Chris Visser and Phil Herseman in their Atlas Copco factory Toyota Hilux. But the top 2 steps of the podium belonged, as it has been so many times this season, to the lads from Toyota Gazoo Racing SA. After 50 kilometers of racing, only 30 seconds separated Henk Ladergan and Barry White from Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy, with the latter pair taking the win at Glen Harvey.
Yeah, Glen Run, it's just, you know, so many rocks here, so you have to be really careful. There's a very fine line between pushing too hard and, you know, hitting one of the rocks just off the road.
Right, so let's take a quick look at the numbers. In the specials, it was the Masaji brothers who brought the striker home in first place, just 15 seconds ahead of Lance Trathui in the Big Bat Venom. The Clints, Gibson and Brook, were in third, Thompson and Zamatin in fourth, and Van Pletsen and Petersen rounded out the top 5. Class S saw Yanni Visser pip Dave Huddy, who in turn finished ahead of Archie Rutherford. It was clearly game on in Class T though, as the Horn brothers took the win in qualifying, with Berthold and Minute in second place, Van Tonder and Redlinghuis in third, and the Brazilian crew of Boomgaard and Cincia in fourth. Championship leaders, Woolridge and Huxtable, found themselves in an unfamiliar spot, down in 5th place. And finally, Class FIA saw Janelle de Villiers at the top of the results, with teammates Ladergan and White just 30 seconds off the back wheel. Visser and Hurselman were in third, Van Staden and Lawrenson in fourth, and Variawa and Badania brought their new steed home in a credible 5th place overall. And with that, day 1 of the Gold 400 drew to a close, but there was plenty of drama to come on the final day of cross-country racing for 2018. Join us after the break to watch the action unfold.
Tropical temperatures, endless dust and countless bends. These were just some of the difficulties of the 1964 Argentinian Grand Touring Car Prize. For Mercedes, it would be a great success.
Hello, Sunny Banani, Dumelang, and welcome to another episode of the world of buying and selling. Yep, that's right. It's time for Buyer's Guide.
Adam Ford and Segi Mudley, together with a panel of expert guests, have years of experience under their belts to advise you on your next automotive decision. Whether it be choosing between your next new or used vehicle purchase.
So for me, the i20 because it's more spacious, but the Picanto would be more affordable.
To mechanical advice.
I feel that the service and quality has been slipping slightly too.
To warranty and service plan advice.
In the Mazdas, the 3-year warranty isn't extendable to 5 years.
And sometimes we just have a good laugh as well.
You like ugly cars. Mark!
That's Buyer's Guide, your one-stop shop for all your motoring needs. Only on Ignition, DSTV channel 189.
Welcome back to the Goldfields near Glen Harvey, where the action was about to get underway. This was it, the very last day of the entire 2018 South African Cross Country Series. A series that saw around 40 crews traverse the length and breadth of Southern Africa in their individual pursuits of glory. And it was all coming down to this. On the cards for the day, 2 loops, each comprising of 163 kilometers of rough and rocky dirt roads around the town of Glen Harvey and the surrounding mines. So a total of 326 kilometers, with each corner and each rock possessing the power to influence the overall outcome of not only the race, but also the entire championship. You've already seen the results of the previous day's qualifying race, but this is what it meant as far as the overall and individual championships were concerned. At the top of the list and at the front of the Class FIA field, it was going to be a showdown between Toyota Gazoo Racing teammates Henk Ladergan and Janelle de Villiers. First across the line will be crowned SA Cross Country Champion, and if both falter, Chris Visser, who sits in third, may just sneak the win. In the hugely popular but very competitive Class Ts, a showdown between former class champions, the Horn brothers, in their Malalan Toyota Hilux, and the NWM Ford Ranger piloted by Lance Woolridge. To make matters even more interesting though, both Woolridge's younger brother Gareth as well as Atlas Copco's Gary Berthold were both still in with a shout. So far on the event, it was advantage to the Horn brothers. And over at the special vehicle front, it was a simple two-horse race between big man Kutsia Labuskakny in the ARB Porter and the Bat Warbird of John Talford, with Labuskakny going into race day with a slender 26-second advantage following the qualifying race. So the table was set for several championship showdowns, whilst many teams were there for one thing and one thing only, to win the Gold 400. As always in cross-country racing, the clock was counting down the last few minutes before the official 8 o'clock start time, with more than 30 cars and crews filling the start chute at the Kloof Recreation Club in Glen Harvey. At the very front of the field, it was the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Hilux of Dakar legend Chanel de Villiers, with Dennis Murphy alongside him, who had the honour, or is it disadvantage, of opening up the road. There's no dust to hamper your visibility, but also no tracks to follow, and it wasn't long before de Villiers ran into rocks and punctured a tyre on the Hilux. The decision was made to change the wheel, but valuable time was lost, and soon after, Henk Ladekan and Barry White blasted past their teammates and into the lead. The Atlas Copco Hilux of former champion Chris Visser and Phil Herseman was also in hot pursuit, and at the 50-kilometre marker, the man from the northwest had moved up into second overall position, just 26 seconds from the overall lead. Let's fast forward another few kilometres down the road, and the order stayed the same, with Ladekan leading the way ahead of Visser and a recovering de Villiers, with the Alfa Renault Duster just behind, in the form of Van Staden and Lawrenson moving up into fourth overall. About half a minute behind Van Staden and in fifth overall was the brand new Nissan Navara, piloted by Special Vehicles former champion Chimio Varioa and co-driver Zahir Baranya. The car was obviously going to have some teething problems, but looked great on the road, and that straight out of the factory. Behind these leading class FIA cars, Johan and Werner Horn were doing exactly what they had set out to do, and that was to try and win the Class T race and hope for the best as far as the championship was concerned. The Malalan Toyota was maintaining a good pace ahead of the NWM Ford Ranger that was occupied by Brazilians, Marcus Baumgart and Navi Clebercincia, who were around a minute back at this stage of the race. The Brazilians were just a few seconds ahead of the hard-charging Gary Berthold and Jeff Minott in the Atlas Copco Hilux though. But more importantly, as far as the championship was concerned, the NWM Ford crew of Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable were definitely under pressure, as their championship title rivals were leading the class, and they currently found themselves down in fourth.
Five South African teams, over 2,500 kilometers, 8 epic days. Only on Ignition TV. It's the Sasol Solar Challenge.
This week, the final GP from Abu Dhabi and Fernando Alonso's F1 career ends. Highlights from the annual SEMA show in Las Vegas. Ferrari's finale Mondiale from Monza. And spectacular VLN from the Nürburgring, all in auto speed.
modern-day cross-country race, competitors start their respective onslaughts in 2-minute intervals. So at first, the race is against a stopwatch. Only once all the competitors have completed the same section of the course, or better even, the first 163 kilometers that make up the first 2 loops, one could start to form a picture of what was really going on. Then add the time set in the qualifying race from the day before, and Robert's your father's brother. As the team started to arrive back at the designated service park in Glen Harvey, a few questions were slowly being answered. Class S of the production vehicle category immediately turned into a 3-way tussle between the wily old fox Jannie Visser and his son Chris in their trusty old V6 Hilux. Championship points leaders Dave Huddy and Gerrit Skidder in their Nissan Navara, and Archie Rutherford, now with son Kent on the notes, inside the cockpit of their Atlas Copco Hilux. The Rutherfords were keeping their noses clean and set the outright pace on Loop 1 to reach the DSP as Class S leaders, around a minute ahead of both Visser and Huddy, who stopped the clock exactly at the same time, down to the last second, and that after 200 kilometers of flat-out racing. This was turning out to be the best Class S battle of the season. Up ahead in Class T, the Brazilians, Boomgaard and Cincio, were right in the mix until not one but 2 punches near the end of the loop dropped them way down the order. Ahead of them, the 4x4 Mega World Hilux of youngsters, Dylan Venter and Donovan Lover, were also finding the going tough and further down the field than normal. The same could be said of youngster Richard Leek and the experienced co-driver Donnie Stassen. Leek, who also competes in the National Rally Championship and won the final event of the season just 1 week prior. But on this occasion, they were slowed down by punches. Not 1 again, but 2. Ahead of Leek, another former rally driver in the form this time of Tiaan Schubert was making his cross-country debut, with co-driver Sean Van Staden reading the notes. Schubert has proved himself over the years to be a calculated driver, and his approach clearly worked here in Glen Harvey as he safely reached the halfway mark in his Class T Alfa Renault Duster in a very respectable 5th position. The fight ahead of Schubert was not only for Class T race honours, but also for the Class T Championship. Lance Woolridge was the points leader, but the NWM Ford driver was perhaps a touch too cautious this time around, managing only the 4th fastest time at the halfway marker. Ahead of Woolridge, another Ford Ranger in the form of Harry Smith residents, Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuyse. Van Tonder has shown great pace of late and is certainly one of the most improved drivers of 2018. But Van Tonder was not in the running for the championship fight, whilst Gareth Woolridge certainly was. Together with Boyd Dreyer, the younger of the 2 Woolridge brothers, did exactly what he had to do in his NWM Ford Ranger by reaching the halfway mark in 2nd position, which meant that Gary Berthold and Jeff Minnett managed to maintain their great pace from early on. The Atlas Copco Hilux also avoided any rocks or other obstacles to reach the halfway marker with a narrow Class T advantage of just 20 seconds. So what about the other title hopefuls, the Horn brothers from Malalan? Unfortunately for Johan and Werner, the news wasn't good. They were absolutely flying early on and opened up a lead of over a minute in the first 50 kilometers. But then the Hilux came to a mysterious halt. Minutes and a few rivals flew by as they were completely helpless while seeing their title aspirations disappear in front of their eyes. And what about the cars in Class FIA? The Nissan Navara squad had no less than 4 cars present here in Glen Harvey. The British duo of Thomas Bell and Patrick McMurran, who now reside in Dubai, were clearly enjoying their time behind the wheel as they prepared for the Dakar 2019. Whilst newcomers to the FIA category, Ernest Roberts and Navi Stewie Creevy had a little incident in which they turned the Navara up onto its side. The damage wasn't too serious though, and they were able to continue on. The adventure inside the Terence Marsh Redline Motorsport Nissan Navara continued for both himself and celebrity co-driver Leseko Zulu, who was taking a physical hammering. But the strong woman kept her composure to survive the first of the day's racing loops. Near the top end of the leaderboard is exactly where one would expect to find the names of Shamir Variawa and Zahir Budanya. And that's exactly where they were, following a successful completion of Loop 1. While semi-successful anyway, the new Nissan Navara was the 5th FIA car to reach the DSP. Consistency is the name of the game for Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson, who arrived in the DSP in the Alfa Renault Duster, clocking a time just under 2 minutes faster than Variawa. It was enough for 4th position at this crucial part of the race. Ahead of them and at the front of the field, it was all about these 3 Toyotas. The Atlas Copco version, driven by former champion Chris Visser and Phil Husserman, and the 2 factory Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Hilux bakkies of Henk Ladegan and Janiel de Villiers. An early puncher put de Villiers and Murphy on the back foot as they dropped behind their teammates Ladegan and White. After overtaking them, it was Ladegan who had to open up the road and try and find the way through the rocky ridges and farmlands of the goldfields surrounding the mining town of Glenharvie. And through all of this, it was Visser who kept his head down and drove like a man possessed to sneak past everyone on the leaderboard. Once the times were added up, they were in the Class FIA and overall lead of the event by more than half a minute. The production car warriors, or most of them anyway, had made it back to the relative safety of the DSP at the Kloof Recreation Club in Glenharvie. And when the times were added up, this is what the scoreboard had revealed. Dave Huddy and Jannie Visser were both in the lead of Class S, down to the last second, with Archie Rutherford not too far behind in 3rd. Up ahead in Class T, it was Gary Berthold with a 20-second advantage over the Ford of Gareth Woolridge, with 2 more Fords in the hands of Jacques Van Tonder and championship hopeful Lance Woolridge in hot pursuit. Sadly for the Malalan brothers, their names did not feature. The former champions' dreams were shattered with an electrical fault which ground them to a halt. The two brothers were not their usual friendly selves, and with good reason.
Yeah, we had a very good position. We had 4 cars between us and Lance that was leading the championship. And we had an electrical failure. We tried our uttermost best. We stripped the whole car, checked we couldn't find the problem. No luck, game over.
At the other end of the scale though, it was all going according to plan for Gary Berthold, who was leading the Class T fight at this stage of the race.
It's very tight out there. The competition's close. It's seconds between us, between 1st and 4th, but we're in with a shout, and the Atlas Copco Hilux can hopefully bring it home today.
At the very top of the leaderboard and in Class FIA, it was still all to play for. Visser did what he had to do, and that was to lead the race, whilst de Villiers and teammate Ladegan were battling it out for Class FIA as well as overall production car honours. Van Staden and Variawa rounded out the top 5 at the halfway point. Let's hear from current 2nd place driver Henk Ladegan about his exploits as the first car on the road.
We caught Janiel, he had a puncher so we could overtake him. Then we were opening the road, so then it got a bit tricky to find the road, and I think we wrong slotted quite a few times. I think we lost a lot of time that way.
So that's how things stacked up in the various classes of the production vehicle category. But cross-country fans will know that that is only half the story told. Enter the Mad Maxes of the aptly named special vehicle category. These big engine, high-powered racing machines with huge wheels and even longer suspension travel can eat ditches and dongers for breakfast. And although they share the same route as the bakkies on the day, they're actually competing in a race of their very own. And as already mentioned, the overall title was still up for grabs. But don't expect any of the 2 title contenders to fight for overall victory, as they only had eyes for each other at this point. This allowed then the intimidating striker of the Masaji brothers, this time piloted by younger brother Tahir instead of Tyler, to start the race from pole position following the perfect qualifying race the day before. The brothers looked promising early on, but their day was cut short when a technical issue forced them out and they had to retire.
We came down a long straight, then I changed from 3rd to 4th, and it just wasn't selecting the gear. So I don't know. I think it's the input shaft and the gearbox.
The similar car of Clint Gibson and Clint Brook showed great promise also, especially after qualifying in 3rd place, but their race too was cut short. Keith McAnety and co-driver and Toit Goreng were the only ones in a Class P vehicle to reach the DSP after finding the going tough on Loop 1. His brother Andrew McAnety and co-driver Lepsi Masopi could not quite say the same, as they had to retire with a broken alternator on Loop 1. And an all too similar fate befell the Zarco challenger of John Thompson and Marisa Matten, who were also forced to throw in the towel halfway through the first loop of the race. The Liv Lesotho Porter of Werner Kennedy and CJ Van Pletsen did not manage to set a time in qualifying, so they had to start right at the back of the pack with huge time penalties. They did, however, fight their way through the pack to end the loop as 6th special vehicle. With the 2 title rivals knowing exactly what was at stake here, chances for them to take unnecessary risks were slim to none. They simply had to finish first and then finish ahead of one another. And after the first 200 kilometers of the race, it was the 4x4 Mega World and ARB Porter of the Labuschagne pairing who enjoyed a clean run to hold a very decent 10-minute advantage over John Telford and Victor Nsheki, who was slowed by a few issues along the way and who now had everything to do on the final lap. So all eyes were on Telford and Labuschagne, but it was great to see the 2017 Special Vehicle champions, the husband and wife pairing of Marius and Yulinda Fourie, make a once-off appearance so late on in the season. The Fouries clearly still have what it takes as they finish the loop in a credible 3rd position overall. They were just 2 minutes behind the rapid old Chenoweth of Liv Lesotho's Stefan Van Pletsen and Jaco Pieterse, who could only manage to set the 5th fastest time in qualifying, but sped to a flawless run to see them climb the leaderboard up into 2nd place at the halfway marker. From the moment that the Massages retired from pole position, Loop 1 of the special vehicle race was all about these 2 guys. Big Lance Trethewey on the wheel and Adrian Roots on the notes inside the LTE Earth Movers Bat Venom. The man from KZN did not enter every round this season, but when he does, he is always one of the favourites to win, and the Gold 400 was no different. So there's the confirmation of Trethewey's lead of around 6 minutes over Van Pletsen and another 2 minutes over the Fouries. Labuschagne was where he wanted to be, and that was ahead of Telford, whilst McAnety was the only surviving Class P driver. 5.5 races were a thing of the past, and now only half a race of around 170 kilometers remained and stood between Coetzee Labuschagne and the overall Special Vehicle Championship.
You know, we're over the 1st and 2nd hurdle now. The 3rd hurdle, but you know, they say about the dik tannies, you must sing first before it's over.
That's it for the Goldfields around Glen Harvey for now. Join us after the break to see who will be crowned as cross-country champions in 2018.
Come to Daddy.
In today's show, the boys take on the great-granddaddy of the 4x4s. It's a family heirloom that is so much more than just a car to its owner.
She loves it. It's the most important thing that she's got left.
Although years of neglect turn a once champion off-roader into a right old rotter.
Rust, 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 rust.
And getting it back to its former glory sends Tim and Fuzz right off the tracks.
Take the brace position.
Welcome back to Glen Harvey, where the 2018 South African Cross Country Series was about to draw to a close. Both the production as well as the special vehicle fields had already completed 163 kilometers of flat-out racing on rough and rocky roads, but they weren't the only ones. The side-by-side, or so-called interprovincial challenge, has grown from strength to strength this year, and all indications are that this affordable form of cross-country racing will continue to grow in 2019, when they will not only race the one loop, but go full race distance, aiming for 400 kilometers, just like the rest of the national categories. Nico Durant, with Henry Kerner navigating, had already been crowned the champions, but they failed to finish this time around. This opened the door for Leander Pienaar, coming back into racing alongside Carl Swanepoel to record a podium finish with a fine third, whilst Peter Walter and Sean de Villiers managed to climb up into the second position after a hard-fought battle. Class stalwarts, Werner Mostert alongside Rob Green, ended their season on a high with a well-earned victory in their Can-Am Maverick. Mostert was both happy and humble come the end of the event.
It was tough terrain today. We had a clean run, we had an open run, we didn't have much traffic, and we managed to finish first. I'm super chuffed.
So look out for the side-by-sides to provide cross-country fans with even more of a spectacle in 2019. And speaking of 2019 and a spectacle, these guys will most certainly be playing a huge part in next season's events as they try and claim the Special Vehicle Championship. We're of course talking about the Live Lesotho crew of Stefan van Pletsen and Jaco Pieterse. But who are they? Where did they come from? And how did they end up coming and racing for our entertainment? We chatted to the lads to try and answer a couple of these questions. For a good start, where does the name Live Lesotho come from?
Live Lesotho is basies ek sê John Moore van Lesotho. Sy seun Sharon, hy het dit begin vir homself as 'n company in Lesotho om toere te reël en sulke goed en border teken vir racing want hy ry motorfiets. Goed, hy het die jaar 20 kom in derde kom in national en saam met ons as span met die karre werk ons saam. Ek en John kom jare saam en hy borg my al donkie jare.
But that's here and now. Where and how did it all start?
Van klein tyd af. Ek was se B, toe ek vir Hannes Grobler en sien rally ry en Salo van Merwe met die Audi Quattros en Gassie Kutse met die Skyline. En van toe was ek getrigger en gehoek en dit is verby.
Ek het motorfiets begin ry toe ek seker standaard 9 matriek was. Dit was my begin van my motorsport loopbaan. Nie regtig groot geraak daarmee in my familie nie. Maar ek was bevoorreg genoeg om dit te kon doen. Na skool het ek 'n paar jaar motorfiets gery en toe het ek en Stefan bymekaar gekom. En ons het toe nou besluit ons gaan 'n kar koop en van daar af het dit aangegaan en ons is nou vandag waar ons is.
And then came their first off-road race.
En hy het my gesê vat die kar gaan ry om die Calydon 400 in die baan toe. En as leuke het ons hom gevat en ons het 'n besonderse dag gehad daai tyd en dit is van toe af het ons maar net aangegaan.
Early success pulled the pair deeper and deeper into the sport. But how do they actually feel about each other?
Ja, nee, hy ken sy storie en ons het soos hy gesê het 'n unieke verstandhouding. Dan nie glo na al die jare ons het nog nooit nie eenmal op mekaar geskree of beklei of glad nie.
Nee, ek dink ons moet dit eerder noem wat het ek reg gedoen om met Stefan op te eindig. Hy is 'n ongelooflike bestuurder.
The last half decade has also brought its own highlights for the pair.
As verlede jaar het ons hier so 'n ongelooflike wedren gehad. Ons het eerste van die algemene posisies klaargemaak.
En die eerste keer toe ons Evan Hutchinson gewen het in Lichtenburg, dit was self iets spesiaals en hy weet dit en ons weet dit. En die feit dat ons laas jaar vir hom klaargemaak het, want hy is 'n legende.
But the big question, as always, is what next? Will we see them racing in 2019?
Moeilike vraag om nou so te antwoord want ons het nog nie 'n duidelike plan nie. Ons wag maar nog om te sien wat gebeur, maar vir nou dink ek nie ons is heeltemal klaar resies gery nie.
But back to the job at hand, and for the remaining crews in both production as well as special vehicle categories, that meant taking on and finishing the final 163 kilometers of the entire 2018 season. Let's focus on the special vehicle battle, where the Lapskaknis were fighting for their lives against Telford and Nsheki in their quest to become champions, whilst others, such as Van Pletsen and Trathui, had their sights set on winning the final event, winning the Gold 400. At the other end of the field, though, the names of former champions Marius and Yulinda Fourie were added to the long list of non-finishers when they had no choice but to give up the chase during the second loop. Werner Kennedy and CJ Van Pletsen enjoyed a relatively clean run to reach the end in Glen Harvey. They were the 5th special vehicle to cross the line and the 4th in class, which meant that Keith McEnetti and co-driver and Tote Bareng finally managed to turn their string of bad luck around by claiming 4th position overall and the win in Class P. But what about the title battle between Labuschagne and Telford? Sadly for Telford, and luckily for Labuschagne, it never happened. The big man and the ARB 4x4 Mega World Porter started the final loop with a 10-minute buffer over Telford, who had every intention to try and close the gap, but Lady Luck deserted him just when it mattered. All sorts of mechanical problems robbed him of valuable time and chances to fight for the title, which meant that 3rd place overall in the day was enough for Kutsia and daughter Sandra to claim the coveted special vehicle title. Consistency was the key for the Labuschagnes, who managed to score points in every race this season, including a victory at the Fiat Desert Race. So Labuschagne won the overall war, but someone still had to win the battle on the day. The Little Lesotho crew of Van Pletsen and Petersen sure put in a valiant effort, but on the day, as with the previous race in Harrismith, the pairing of Lance Trethewey and Adrian Roots was simply in a class of their own. Trethewey had a clean run and made no mistakes, throwing down the gauntlets and claiming a stake in the 2019 title fight in the process. The scoreboard then served as proof that McEnetti claimed Class P. At the same time, Labuschagne, who finished ahead of Telford, did enough to claim the 2018 Special Vehicle title, while a good result by Van Pletsen and a very convincing victory by Trethewey bodes well for the future battles in this extreme off-road racing category. That was that then for the Special Vehicle category in 2019. Over at the production car end of the race, a number of questions still had to be answered. Firstly, the wily old fox, Jannie Visser, and his son, Chris Visser Jr., still had a chance to be crowned Class S champions for the umpteenth time. The Northwest farmer did what he could by not only finishing the tough and demanding race, but by taking yet another class win in a long and successful career in the sport of cross-country racing. But it wasn't enough, as David Huddy and Gerrit Skitter only needed to finish, and finish they did. It wasn't plain sailing though, as they lost a few gears along the way that slowed them down, but 3rd place on the day was still enough to claim the Class S title. 3rd for Huddy meant a well-deserved 2nd place for veteran racer and president of the Cross Country Commission, Archie Rutherford. What makes it even more special is that Rutherford shares his hobby with his high school son, Kent, who did a great job of reading notes inside their old Hilux. That's how things stacked up in Class S, so on we move, higher up into the competitive Class Ts, where former champions Johan and Werner Horn were already forced to throw in the towel and relinquish their title in the process. The 4x4 Mega World Hilux of youngsters Dylan Fenter and Donovan Lubber had an eventful day, but the young man was happy to nevertheless still reach the end and record an 8th place finish in category. Ahead of them was the Ford NWM Ranger of Brazilian crew, Marcus Boomgaard and Kleber Cincia. Boomgaard had a difficult first lap filled with punches, but was clean and fast on the 2nd run to end their African Odyssey on a high. The Brazilians ended the race a little behind the rapid speed class BMW X3 of Richard Leek and Donnie Stassen. Leek is still very young in the sport with a ton of potential, and although luck wasn't completely on his side this season, the talented driver will be one to watch out for in the future. And finishing his maiden outing in a cross-country race was another rally specialist in the form of Tian Schubert, whose cool, calm and collected approach to the sport clearly paid dividends. With Sean Van Staden reading the notes inside the 2nd of the Alfa Renault Dusters, Schubert didn't put a foot wrong all weekend and was rewarded with a fine 5th place in the hotly contested Class T category. We were now nearing the hot end of the Class T battle, and after a good showing in their home event in Harrismith just over 1 month ago, Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlingace continued their good form in their slightly older Ford Ranger. Van Tonder completed the weekend's racing with a run time of 4 hours and 24 minutes, around 9 minutes faster than Joubert and just more than 3 minutes slower than Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer in their NWM Ford Ranger. The younger of the Woolridge brothers had a very small chance to win the Class T title, but it was mathematical at the very best. A punctured tyre on loop number 2 didn't help things either, In the end, he showed his mettle and proved that he will be involved in many more title fights in a long career still to come.
This week on Auto Mundial, Lexus gives its underperforming RC the hybrid treatment. BMW thought their famous kidney grille just wasn't big enough, so introducing the X7. And Ford attempts to capture the magic of the movie Built in their latest Mustang. That's Auto Mundial only on Ignition DSTV, channel 189.
And then there were two. With the Horn brothers removed from the action, the Class T champions would come out of these two pairings. The NWM Ford Ranger crew of Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable, and the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux pairing of Gary Berthold and Jeff Minott. Berthold had tackled the second half of the season with new vigour and enthusiasm, and it showed. He was no doubt on a mission. Woolridge, on the other hand, showed remarkable maturity for his age, not only during this race, but throughout the entire season, minimising the risks when needed and sticking his head out when he had to. In this race, he did both, but firstly taking it easy on Loop 1 and ended up stepping up the pace on Loop 2. In the end, though, a faultless performance came in from Berthold to see the Atlas Copco crew win the final fight of the season and take their second victory to boot. But second place on the day was all that was required for Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable to win the overall Class T war. This is how it ended in Class S and T respectively. The Fissers took the Class S victory on the day ahead of the Rutherfords, while Huddy's third place was enough to secure the Class S title. Gary Berthold came out on top in Class T, but Lance Woolridge fulfilled a lifelong dream by following in his father's footsteps as he too became a South African cross-country racing champion. Father Neil had every reason to be proud as younger brother Gareth rounded out the Class T podium. The countdown was nearly complete as the entire 2018 season was now drawing to a close. There was just one more matter to be settled, the little issue of crowning the overall production car champions. In the hunt, defending champion Chenille de Villiers and Toyota Gazoo Racing SA teammate Henk Latergan, with Atlas Copco star Chris Visser still in with a chance. But before we get to that conclusion, this is what went on further down the field. The brand new Navara of Shamir Varioa didn't get a good result here in Glen Harvey, as it was still suffering from a few teething problems, but showed great potential nonetheless. In fact, it was a good weekend all round for the Redline Motorsport crew. Tommy Bell reaching the end and moving one step closer to Dakar. Newcomers Ernest Roberts also reached the end in their first ever event behind the wheel of a Class FIA car. But the star of the show was the widow of Gugu Zulu, who did the memory of her famous late husband proud by completing one of the most grueling races on the event calendar alongside Terence Marsh in their Redline Motorsport Miss Navara. In the end, they not only finished the race, but ended just off the Class FIA podium in 4th place. An amazing result for the rookie navigator, and she had every reason to be proud of her result.
That was hectic. I think I did fairly well. I composed myself, you know, but it's physically taxing. I'm exhausted.
Ahead of them, and occupying the final podium spot when the checkered flag was waved, was none other than Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson in the Alf Renault Duster. Besides suffering from one early puncher, the ever-steady Van Staden did what he does best and brought the car home safely to end their season on a high. Only 2 more podium positions remained, but 3 top crews were still in the running. At this stage, there were several permutations as far as the championship was concerned. One of them was that Latergan had to win and de Villiers had to finish 3rd with Visser in between them for Latergan to win the title. And at one point, this looked a distinct possibility. As far as Chris Visser was concerned, he only had one goal, and that was to win the race. With just 70 kilometers to go, the Atlas Copco Hilux of Visser and Hurselman was on its way to an emphatic victory. But unfortunately, it just was not to be. Visser's retirement pretty much sealed the deal for de Villiers, who was now on his way to yet another South African motorsport title, regardless of the outcome of this event. Whilst Ladachan, on the other hand, kept his head down and crossed the finish line for his second consecutive victory in as many races. Or so everyone thought. The youngster later received a 5-minute penalty for deviating from the route, the result of trying to find the road whilst he was the first car during the morning's loop. This handed the race victory to teammates de Villiers and Murphy. It was, however, a great overall performance by the factory Toyota Gazoo Racing SA squad, who won the race as well as the overall title at the end of the day. And there it is, a win for de Villiers and Murphy that also saw them take the overall production vehicle championship. Ladachan's penalty cost him a victory, but the youngster didn't leave empty-handed, as he was crowned Class FIA champion in his first full season as a factory Toyota driver. Van Staden and Lawrenson claimed the final podium position of 2018. And that, as they say, is that. The final chance of the season for South Africa's best cross-country drivers and navigators to taste the sweet victory bubbly from the coveted SA cross-country podium. In the special vehicles, it was big Lance Trethewey alongside Adrian Roots, who once again stood on top.
It's not that easy, it's hard work. There's a lot of good competition out there. Great race, well marked. It's first time here and we really enjoyed it.
A great race for the man from KZN, but an even better season for the veteran, Coetzee Labuschagne, who took the overall title.
Yes, no, I'm very, very, very happy, but I'm very blessed that it could have happened with my daughter as well. That makes it very, very special, guys.
The Class S podium saw newly crowned champions Huddy and Skitter on the third step, with father and son Archie and Kent Rutherford on the second, with the old fox Jannie and son Chris Visser standing on top. There were a few very happy faces on the Class T podium, like race winners Gary Bertholdt and Jeff Minute.
Obviously would have loved to win the championship, but winning the day and bringing home on the top of the step of the podium and being first was a great achievement today.
Happiness for Bertholdt, who won the battle on the day, but sheer elation for Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable, who won the championship war.
It's been a good year for us, so very thankful. Thankful for everyone in the team. It's by no means just a 1-2-man effort, it's our whole team, and I just want to say thanks to everyone.
And to round it all off, the crews that ended at the top of the overall, as well as the Class FIA leaderboard, and it was Janelle de Villiers who added another win and title to his name.
You know, win's a win, and at the end of the day we won the championship, so very happy for that. Happy for Toyota Gazoo, 1-2 today, and we'll see. Now we're ready for the Dakar.
And that's it from the 2018 South African Cross Country Series. If this year's action and drama is anything to go by, we can't wait to see you all in 2019 so we can do it all over again. All the action from the Gold 400, the final round of the 2018 SACCS, was brought to you by Ford, Toyota and Total Exilium.